Everyone. I hope you guys can hear me all right. Sorry I'm running behind today. Hey, all right, who do we got here? Zage, good to see you. Hey, we got Alex from Romania. Romania. My voice is a little messed up today. Alex from Romania. I have to say that 1,000 times. I miss you, Alex from Romania. I just miss saying Romania. Anyway, I love Romania. So, guys, good to see you. I know I had to publish my video earlier today, so I'm running behind. It's hard for me to get both of these done in the very specific period of time. So, I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can through this today. I don't have my economic calendar, so I'm just going to have to go through the charts. But normally, what I do is I run through the economic calendar first, and then we go through the charts. Okay. And now, so I published my video from earlier. Okay, the cryptocurrency video, Bitcoin and Ethereum and AVNT and the other one, the other trade. That was actually published on the other YouTube channel about 30 minutes ago. Okay, so I published that. I produced that video like an hour ago. So that's like brand new. All right. So that's why that had to come out first. And then I got to my stream here. So so anyway, so I'm not going to cover those details here. That's the whole point of the other channel. Okay, Mark's Market. You can also go to the Telegram channel. That's this link that you see here, this link that I have up on the screen, and that QR code. If you scan that QR code, it will take you to the Telegram channel. And that's where all the details are, okay, for the two trades, the Ethereum trade, all the stuff that's going on, all the details are in there. So if you have any questions or anything, just look there, scan that QR code, and you'll have all the answers, okay? This stream is more so I could just keep in touch with everyone, just answer general market questions and talking about just the broader indices and stuff like that in general, or talk about specific stocks and things like that, all right? So today was a holiday, by the way. Today was a federal holiday, and the official, like the Nasdaq, was closed. The Qs were closed, right? And the S&P were closed, but the futures were open, right? So if we go to the futures chart, we can go to NQ1, okay? We go to the futures chart. The futures actually were open today when I looked earlier. And I mean, what, we're minus 26 points for the day or whatever? I mean, if we look at a smaller time frame, like a 15-minute, for example, I mean, you can see there was some price action, right? This blue area, this is the pre-market, I guess you could say, right? Or it was just, it's blue, I guess, because the whole day is a holiday. I mean, look, this was the open around here, right? Right here in this area. See that? Let me just make this bigger, because this kind of gives us a hint. Even though the market was like officially closed, look what we have here, right? This was the open right around here. See that? And it basically sold off and then gave us sort of a range bound situation. This was the actual market day right here. Okay. And everything else that you see, all of this is the overnight. This is yesterday at 6 p.m. Eastern time going to 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So the overnight, I guess you could say the European session, the London session sold off. Okay. And then we basically had a lower low, an attempted lower low on the smaller time frame here. And then it bounced back up and found this resistance. So these days are hard to trade intraday if you got to deal with this intraday. Usually in these situations, today I just took the day completely off because I had other things I had to do, and I don't like to trade market holidays. They're generally a bad idea, but in a situation like this, what you're looking for is some sort of level. In this case, it would be a resistance, because this general trend was bearish, right? This structure is pretty clear cut. This is bearish, right? There's nothing bullish about this. So that's bearish. So if the orientation is bearish, you're simply looking for resistance levels to attempt to sell. That would be the intraday idea. Of course, it's easier to say after the fact, but if I cover up this, right, and this is all the data we had, even at this time, I would say the general structure is bearish by the time the market opened, right? That's the market open. In fact, you know what I can do? I could just do this to erase the data, right? The market open was right here, right? Right here. This was the market open. That's what the market looked like at the open. okay, at the holiday open. There's nothing bullish about that. Okay, we had a lower high up here. We had a break of this support over here, possible bounce test. But even in this situation, right? Even if this is all the data we had, I would be looking for at least an attempt at some type of resistance for a short. That's what I'd look for. That's the higher probability. Anyway, that's the Nasdaq. There's not really a whole lot to say about that. All right. So, but it can give us some clues for tomorrow, because I mean, basically, we settled here with this lower high, right? I would expect range bound activity overnight, and then look for a test of support. So we're looking to start out the week bearish, right? All right. Now, guys, let me know what economic reports we have this week. I was not able to check my calendar. If I had to go through that whole calendar thing, then I wouldn't even be able to do the stream at 4 o'clock my time. So, all right. Nice to meet. Red T-shirt. No. Hey. All right. No. All right. Hold on. Don't jump to any conspiracy theories. Okay. No conspiracy theories. So we're just looking at just general structure, right? And it's usually a good idea to work with the weekly time frame to get a broader sense, right? And this is the weekly time frame. I'm starting here with the Nasdaq, but we're going to take a look at the bond market. We're going to take a look at the S&P, gold, and oil, right? Now, let me know if there are any specific economic events. I believe there was some sort of speech by a Fed guy this week, or something like that. I saw some kind of Fed speech. I don't know. That can have an effect on things. There's been no Clarity Act. We were waiting for this Clarity Act, which never seems to be clear. They can't agree on this yield situation, because the legacy banks, obviously they're going to lose a lot of money, and since they own the politicians, they're not going to let this go without some kind of big fight. Okay, so you have Coinbase and all those guys on one side, and you have you have the legacy banks like JPM and them on the other side, and clearly they don't want to give up the easy money that they've been making, because now they'd have to compete, right? So anyway, we have to see how that goes. But this Clarity Act is highly anticipated, and you have all these cheerleaders coming out and saying things. Oh, Bitcoin's going to be at 10 billion by the time this thing comes out. Right. Okay. Don't go for that stuff. I had to read a news report like that earlier today with Kevin O'Leary. Bitcoin. I can't do a Kevin O'Leary, but he's like, Bitcoin will be at like 10 trillion by next week once we have our Clarity Act. You can't believe people like this. They're going to say whatever they want to say. Okay. You had that. You had who was it? Grant Cardone. You had Michael Saylor, Kathy Wood. You might as well put them all in the same boat. Okay. They're all just cheerleaders. You can't go by that stuff, right? It's good in general. It's good that they're saying this near a market bottom, for Bitcoin anyway. But don't bet on that kind of stuff. Anyway, so let's look at our bigger picture, right? Starting with the Nasdaq here on the weekly time frame. While the smaller time frames that I just showed you look bearish, and it looks like we're starting off the week with a bearish tone, we're still near a weekly support. Okay, don't lose sight of this. We're near a weekly support. Also, there's nothing bearish about this. There's nothing bearish about this. That's not bearish. Okay, there's nothing bearish about that. So, you could call this inflation, whatever you want to call this. That's what it is. Just accept it. Okay, don't try to overthink it. In this situation like this, our objective is very simple. Just look for support levels, right? And then if support breaks, then you look for the next support level. And eventually the tone will change, the structure will change, right? But until then, these supports are intact, and I'm looking for longs. Like, why would you look for shorts on this time frame? Now, sure, if you're on a 15-minute time frame, then yeah, you could make money on the short side. If you're on a 30-minute time frame, sure. Okay, but not this time frame. Right? This time frame is for your investors. If you're investing in stocks, you're investing in ETFs, maybe you're doing options, okay, whatever, like things like that. You're looking at these support levels. And for the Nasdaq, that's 23.9 basically. 23.9 is the extreme if it can get there. Right now we're at 24,750. That's a good 700 point move lower. That's a pretty significant move, right, for the Nasdaq. I mean, it could do it in one day, but you're going to need a pretty heavy catalyst to get this thing moving like that. Right? Remember, this is the Nasdaq 100. Plus, you have the Dow. Oh, we reached 50,000. Right? They made all that big deal. Again, it's only 30 stocks. So don't go nuts with that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I saw stuff like that with that guy. That's right, folks. you got to, here's another one. They're all going to cheerlead. Okay. Don't take that stuff with a grain of salt. Watch your levels. Watch your levels. There's really nothing bearish about this. Whenever you see pullbacks in a structure that looks like this, you have to think buying opportunity, unless it breaks. If it breaks, then we have another story. But we don't know if it's going to break in advance. There's no way to know. The market has to prove itself, right, or not. So watch for that support area. Okay, right, and and of course you have Trump and his friends. They're all going to be pushing this thing because he measures his progress or his success on the stock market, right? We all know that. So there's a lot of reason for the market to continue higher, and they don't care if the dollar sells off. They don't care. Clearly, they're not in it for our best interest, right? They're in it for whatever corporate interests, whatever. So don't let that confuse you about that whole dollar. The dollar, they want the dollar to go to zero. It's good for them. It's not good for us. It's good for them. Remember, these global companies, right, like Microsoft or whoever, if the U.S. collapses or fails or whatever, they don't care. They still make money. Okay, they don't care. So you have to understand. You can't think in that type of logic. All right, let's jump across here. Let's look at the bond market. Okay, ZN1, because like I always tell people, if you want to know the future, look here first, because this is the cost of money. So you want to know how things are going to be in the future? Look here first. USA spends $30 million on mining for Bitcoin. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all right. I don't know if that really means anything, as technically speaking right now. But just take a look at this bond market situation, right? This is a pretty significant move. Now, the previous week we had what? We had non-farm payrolls and we had CPI. The non-farm payrolls was a delayed non-farm payrolls, and then we had CPI on Friday. This, what you're looking at here, is a result of CPI on Friday. Now, those government numbers, CPI and NFP and all that stuff, they're, in my opinion, not accurate. Okay, but the market, even though I don't believe they're accurate, it doesn't matter. The market trades on that. Okay, they can't let the market stay in the situation. Well, look, we can believe whatever we want to believe. It's whatever the market does, we have to adjust to. So, like I said, look at this: bond prices rose dramatically, right? And it doesn't, even if this is a fake report, even if the CPI is not accurate, it doesn't matter. The market still prices in whatever official data comes out. It doesn't matter what we believe or what we think of it. All that matters is the market priced it in, right? So what do we have here? So we have a rise in the bond prices. This is a higher low. This is a bullish structure for the bond prices, right? As we know, what that means is bond yields, this is the 10-year, bond yields should be going lower. Now we're on our way back to this bond resistance. If we clear this resistance, this is all bullish. Okay? Right. Well, this is all bullish. If the bond market stays this way, Hamid, if the bond market stays this way, we're looking at a bullish market, at least for the Nasdaq and S&P. And Bitcoin should eventually feel that if the cost of money is getting cheaper. Let's take a quick look. US 10Y. Okay? Now, look at this. Bond yields, right? This is the bond yields. I told you, if the bond yields work their way lower, that's what the market wants to see. Cheap money is good. All those clowns are, altcoin season. Well, this is the recipe. This is what you want to see for altcoin season. But obviously not at these yields. We need to see much lower yields. So we need to see a test of low like this, right? When we start seeing yields start pushing these lows, this is going to take some time. This is not going to happen like right away. But we start pushing these. Watch this chart. It's slow. It's very slow to unfold. All right. I mean, let's take a look at a monthly. I mean, look at this. This is the monthly. And this thing takes forever. It's like watching paint dry. From time to nothing, and behind this mining facility. Yeah, I mean, look, we could talk about conspiracy theories all day, Hamid. None of that really matters. What matters is how this chart shapes, the shape of this chart. Really, because this is a reflection of all of that and information that we don't know, right? So this right here, I mean, look at this. This is a monthly now. This looks like a bullish triangle, does it not? This looks like a consolidating triangle in this generally bullish structure. These are bond yields, right? So theoretically, this is bullish and we should hold this support and we should work our way higher over the next, whatever, few months, right? Unless it breaks. So this is not telling us, we can't look at this chart and say, okay, I know the future. We can't do that. But we can say if this level breaks, right, and that support breaks, that means yields are getting cheaper. We should see a positive effect across the board. We should see a stronger Bitcoin. We should see stronger altcoins, right? That is what we should see. And Bitcoin is at a great price for investing, right? And I'm not going to get into a Bitcoin chart here. That's what my other channel is for. But if you guys watch those videos, I've been saying it over and over, and I believe a lot of that stuff. I don't believe all of it, but a lot of that stuff that I say in those videos, I agree with. So we are at a pretty attractive investment point for those types of assets. It's just the bond yields don't agree with it right now. But if we start breaking these supports on the yields, then we'll start to see a more supportive market there. And now is the time to be accumulating, right? Now is the time, not when Bitcoin's pushing 126, not when Ethereum is pushing 4,000. That's the moron time. That's when the morons jump in and you sell to them, right? Not now. Now is when the morons are scared. They're scared because this thing's going to go lower. And Bitcoin could potentially go lower. It could go to 50K, right? That's possible. But if this thing starts to sell off, right? This thing starts to sell off, Bitcoin is more likely to find support than not, right? So keep that in mind. They know the potential. Sure, of course they do. Right. So it's all about the cost of money, and it begins here. And this chart is now beginning to move the right way, but we haven't done anything substantial yet, right? We haven't broken any of these supports. So watch this level. What is this? 4.168%. So this thing starts pushing below 4.15%. The yield starts pushing below, because remember, this trades more of in a free market. The Fed can't control this maturity. Then we're moving the right way, and you should start to see support. You want to be positioned before that, by the way. And you don't have to go all in. You take your small bites, right? You should be accumulating some Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of the layer one coins, right? With that have a material future, not PP coin. All right, let's move along here. Like Chainlink, I think Chainlink is a good one if you're interested in a coin. So anyway, there's one called Zero coming out. I was just looking at something about that. It's not out yet, but it's one of those institutional infrastructure type coins. I guess you could say it's sort of like XRP, but not exactly. Zero, it's called ZRO. And you have some big names getting into that now. I mean, Kathy Wood invested in that, so I don't know if that's a good sign, because she's not exactly a genius in my book. But anyway, so just wanted to mention that ZRO. It's not out yet. So let's move along here. Let's take a look at the S&P real quick, right? SPY. Okay, look at this. Look at this. This is like, let's go to the weekly, right? This right here, again, this isn't bearish. It looks like it's hesitating a bit. It's getting a little top heavy. Sure, we could pull back. Sure. Okay, a good support is this old resistance, 613. Right now we're at 681. That's a 50-point potential pullback. That's not a bear market. Don't confuse that with a bear market. You have a lot of these clowns out there, and they say stuff like, what's going on over here? Hold on. They say stuff like, oh man, there's like no one watching this stream. I don't know why I do this, you guys. Anyway, you know why I do this? I'll tell you why I do this. Because Hamid shows up, Kai shows up, and of course Alex from Romania shows up. If it weren't for you guys, and Booty Cheeks, if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't show up either. Man, I got to do something. But anyway, all right, that's why I got to keep this short. So if this thing pulls back, you're going to see a lot of people calling bear market, bear market, bear market. But this is not exactly a bear market. I mean, now these stocks may not be growing on actual GDP growth, but who cares? It doesn't matter. What matters is, it could be inflation, right? Most likely that's what it is. The dollar's just becoming worth less. But this is how you protect your money. So if this thing pulls back, all I'm saying is watch this area right here on something like the S&P. The Nasdaq looked even relatively stronger than this, but keep your eye on a level like that because that's a potential buying opportunity for your main stocks, especially the energy sector, because the S&P is what, 30% energy stocks, right? So ExxonMobil and all those guys, Chevron, those are all in the S&P. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's move along. So let's take a look at let's jump into gold. Let's take a look at gold. Gold has been staying strong. Okay, so here's gold. Look at this. So let's go to the daily time frame on gold. Gold had that pin bar high. Okay, what was that? 5,700, 5,600. Okay, the pin bar high up here. See that on gold? Here, I'm going to highlight it. And since then, we've pulled back. Man, hold on. Let me make the chart bigger so you guys can see it. Okay. So, gold pulled back. Look where gold pulled back to. Okay. That was a support you could have anticipated. Hey, Kai, how are you? All right. I was just mentioning the reason why I do this stream is because of guys like you who show up. I mentioned you specifically. Because you're like the fifth guy watching. So anyway, I point this out on gold because what? Look for similar activity in the S&P technically. Of course, we need catalysts to drive this type of stuff. It doesn't mean it will happen, but if it happens, you should be prepared because these technical patterns repeat themselves. Look for this old resistance, new support. Now, anyway, with gold is forming a lower high. So this is a tough spot for gold. Like I would not be in a hurry to buy gold right now in this situation. If this lower high sticks, okay. I know, Kai, because I'm running behind today. Because I had to get my video out first. That video kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in my schedule. If I don't get it done by a certain time, then this is what happens. So that's why. But so I started this way after that, an hour after than I normally start. So, and I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm not going to run this thing the whole hour. I apologize for that, but hopefully I get the stream earlier. But so watch this lower high on gold. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, because guys, I do the stream essentially. I do the stream for fun because I certainly don't get paid for this at all. I get nothing. So I do it because I like to entertain you guys and I like to see you guys every week. So anyway, watch this level on gold here if it retests, because if it does, that could be an opportunity. That's around the 4,400, 4,450 area on gold, like somewhere around here. This could be a buying opportunity. Double bottom, failed low situation. You could use options, right? There's a few ways you can go about that. You could buy gold stocks, whatever, but that's your level, not now. That's the point. So don't get too ahead of yourself on gold. All right. Now let's move along here. I want to jump to before we look at oil, let's look at IWM. Actually, we can take a look at IWM and Coinbase. I have positions in these. Okay, so IWM, I've been very bullish on. Kai, we talked about this the week before. You even mentioned a specific reason why IWM is being driven the way it is. There was a fundamental reason for this. I can't remember what it is exactly right now. You could, if you want to repeat it for the chat, that would be cool. Let's go to the monthly chart. I mean, look at this. IWM, this is the Russell 2000 ETF. It looks like an altcoin, right? I bought some option spreads on this when we had these little minor pullbacks on the weekly, right? When we had some of these bearish activity here. Hey, how are you, Hassan? You saw I made some Dr. Evil jokes for you. Fed is buying short-dated U.S. bonds. Oh, that's the reason. Okay. Mr. Powers. My Dr. Evil impression. I threw those in just for you. So Fed is buying short-dated U.S. bonds. All right, and obviously these companies, the Russell 2000, depend on these type of short-term loans, right? So that means if the yields are if the bond prices are rising and the yields are going lower, that's good for the Russell 2000, right? We will see 3,000 channel in gold. 3,000. I don't know. Maybe 4,400. I don't know, Hamid. I watch it after the stream. Oh, okay. No problem, Hassan. But yeah. In my previous couple of videos, every time like million or billion came up, I would say million, Mr. Powers. Okay, I am quite bearish overall and bullish on value. I see clear rotation out of tech. Right. Well, yeah. There's that's some of that's going on. I mean, I'm just looking at the charts, right? And I'm looking at the levels, and I'm just trying to stick to things. I don't have a lot of stuff going on here. I like IWM because it's hard to argue with this structure. And I'm only looking for this thing maybe to push through these highs maybe once or twice. This is not like a long-term investment or anything. I have option spreads. And I think the longest duration was April, I think. That's not that far out. Okay? So, I'm basically looking for the higher high, and then I'll be looking to get out. And I don't know how much. I mean, I'm up on these spreads somewhat. Let's see, the high is 271, and I have I think the 280, 280, 290, and 285, 295. Those would be all-time highs for this thing, right? The highest we've been is 271, and we haven't gone back up there yet. 268 was the closest we got. So when we start pushing highs, if we could start pushing highs, because there is a higher low in place, right? Then I'm looking to sell. I'm looking to get out of those spreads. So anyway, that's all I'm looking for on something like that. That's IWM. But this structure is clear cut. I mean, look, higher lows, higher highs. We're consolidating, looking for one more breakout, right, to new all-time highs. And that can happen any week now. All right. So that's why, like any type of more significant pullback, I try to accumulate some more. I don't have that many, but I was trying to get like 5 spreads, but I only have like 3. So, it's not a big position. And I'm not going to buy on, though, as this thing pushes higher, I'm not going to just keep buying more. I want to buy pullbacks. I want to buy a weakness. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's winning that. I don't think he's winning that anymore. He may have to steal it or something. Maybe he'll send in the Delta Force to take it. So all right, let's take a quick look at All right, that was IWM. Let's take a look at Coinbase real quick. All right, because Coinbase, I have Coinbase. Coinbase is going to be a reflection of Bitcoin. Also, I saw some report on Robinhood. I know this is Alex from Romania likes Robinhood. These things all got hammered in that Bitcoin pullback. I think, look, Robinhood is a great location for investing, right? This is the weekly, and the momentum is still horrendous. I mean, look at this, right? But the levels are attractive, right? Look at the old resistance back here. This is Robinhood, okay? So this one might be one to consider for investing. Now we're talking investing, right? Multi-year. Of course, it'd be nice to see some stabilization. There's no stabilization here yet. So if this is a situation where if you're going to accumulate, you accumulate small, because if this thing continues lower, it's painless, right? So let's go back to Coinbase, because Coinbase, that's really my plan for Coinbase. Remember, I started out with 1 share. Well, I now have 10 shares, okay? And I accumulated those 10 shares throughout this sell-off, Okay, that was the whole idea. Um, oh yeah, well, coin. I mean, Hood is going to be one of those retail, you know, one of those retail. It's going to be a retail favorite because everyone has Hood stock. I mean, everyone has the Robinhood platform. So the retail. Oh, I can Robinhood, buy the stock because the company. If everyone has it, they must be making money, right? So yeah, I mean, they had bad earnings or whatever. I think Coinbase suffered as well. I mean, look at this. I mean, look at, but you can't. You have to understand, like that information is now out of the system, right? It's priced in, and these things are at really attractive prices. And we just saw the bond market is turning the right way, right? So it's just a matter of time. These things start to stabilize. You have to get involved. If you're going to invest, you have to get involved when these things look horrible and they have bad reports. That's when you have to do it, not up here. This is where everyone buys Coinbase. This is where everyone buys Robin. Oh, it looks strong. I'm going to buy more. Right? And this is where I tell people, don't buy these highs. You take the most risk. Now, and when these things look horrendous, this is where you start accumulating. Okay? And you don't go nuts either. You don't go all in. If I had bought hundreds of shares, I would have been margined out by now. Like you can't go all in on these situations. These are risky. I mean, I chose Coinbase over MicroStrategy because I don't like Michael Saylor. No, because MSTR has a much higher beta, and it's wild. I mean, the stock was almost at $100. It was at 400 at one point, right? I chose Coinbase because it's not as wild. So, um, why do you buy Coinbase and Robinhood if you can buy Bitcoin? Exactly. That's exactly why. Because I could buy Coinbase rather than Bitcoin. Coinbase is a company. Coinbase produces profits, right? Bitcoin is just like buying gold. Bitcoin doesn't have any type of revenue stream. So I love your act when you say buy altcoins now. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying. So if you that this is why I'd rather buy a stock as a proxy to Bitcoin or Ethereum. First of all, I don't have to worry about like wallets. I don't have to worry about buying because if I'm going to buy Bitcoin or whatever, I'm going to buy it through Coinbase anyway, right? I don't have to fumble through all that. Okay, I can just buy the stock, and basically, it's essentially being long Bitcoin. So if I want to be long Bitcoin and Ethereum, just buy Coinbase or buy MSTR. Michael Saylor will be very happy if you buy MSTR or Robinhood, right? They're proxies. So that's why, right? So if Bitcoin turns, stabilizes and turns, and then starts to rally, I suspect these will do a similar thing because they're highly correlated, and that's the only reason, right? So it's very simple. Now keep in mind, this is not like 90% of my portfolio or anything like that. This is a very, very small percentage, right? I want to have some exposure to Bitcoin, and this is how I'm doing it. I like Coinbase in general. They're probably the biggest name next to Robinhood as far as like cryptocurrency is concerned in the US, right? Or whatever. So they're going to be on the retail radar and all that. So whatever, I don't care really like what their quarterly reports are like. Honestly, I don't, because if Bitcoin turns, these things are going to turn too in anticipation of better quarterly reports. So don't get caught up in that stuff, right? Because when they turn it around and they start making money or whatever, they start showing better reports or better guidance or whatever, and prices pushing 300 or 350, guess what I'll be doing? I'll be selling it to you. Okay? So that's the idea. You buy when everyone hates these things. And Bitcoin may go to 50K. And if Bitcoin goes to 50K, you get better prices. I mean, the low on this thing was what, 144? 139. Okay, the low on Coinbase. We're at 164 right now. Do you know I picked up one share at 155? It pulled back for just whatever, some stupid reason. And I was able to pick up a share there. So my average price, I have to check, but it's probably around 188 or 185 or something like that, right? That's my average price. So I'm like, what, 20 or 30 points below the market on 10 shares? Like, I can definitely afford to buy more. And that's now my plan is, I've accumulated a very small position. I would like to continue to accumulate, but I want to see stability first, right? A weekly pin bar does not qualify as stability. It's nice to see, but that's not enough, right? I want to see a range. We're going to have to see Bitcoin stability. Bitcoin hasn't proven itself either. We can break that 68, 67K or whatever. Next thing you know, we'll be back at 59K. It can easily happen, right? And if we see something like that, I'm probably going to step aside until I see more sustained stability. Now, let's jump over real quick to oil. Right, I just want to cover these real quick. I'm not going to keep you guys a whole lot longer. Let's just go to oil, CL1, because oil has been showing some strength, right? And it's not pulling back. So remember, oil is the energy sector. It's a reflection of the energy sector. And the energy sector is a major component of the S&P. This also affects things like, global economics, the price of oil. So keep an eye on this thing. This is important. So, from Jordan. All right. Jordan. Cool. So I know a girl from there. Well, she's not, her background is Jordan. She's not located there. But yeah, she's a character. So anyway, double bottom or triple bottom on oil over here. Okay. And just keep in mind, this is not this is not exactly showing weakness, right? We rejected this resistance on oil. Now, oil, of course, is very geopolitically sensitive, and things can change really fast with oil. Well, not everyone, Hassan, but this particular girl, she just happens to be from Jordan, and she's she's definitely a character. So anyway, so just keep an eye on this because this is important. Romania! Are you really from Romania? I had no. Are you joking? Okay. Oil is just. I want to point this out with oil. The resistance is not getting rejected in a substantial way. It's lingering at the resistance. You see that? That's often a sign of, I guess you could say it's an absence of weakness. Because if this was weak, it should touch and go. Like, previously when it touched resistance, right? It touch and go. Look it up here. Touch and go. Or touch and reject. This made the touch, but the rejection isn't so quick, right? I mean, look at the week before. This was a pretty sharp rejection on oil, right? Look at that. That was a pretty sharp rejection. This pin bar over here. But now look, right? That's not what we should be seeing on a touch and go. I am from somewhere in Europe. Oh, a man of mystery. All right. NY mean was, I'm not sure what you mean there. Was Coinbase? Okay. I'm somewhere in Europe. I'm from somewhere in Europe. International man of mystery. That's what Kai is. So, so but this is so just keep an eye on this because this situation right here in oil, we can argue that this is a higher low, right? And if this is a higher low, if this sticks, then we're looking at higher oil prices, okay? And if we get higher oil prices, that's a sign of inflation, isn't it? So just keep an eye on that because if we're seeing that, then that kind of puts a dent in the argument for the Fed to cut rates. Everyone wants the Fed to cut rates still. Okay, we're seeing so you have to watch oil relative to the 10-year note because though they're like two conflicting forces here, right? And one of them has to win eventually. One has to win. So, and I would think the bonds are going to carry more weight, but we have to see if oil does something dramatic, it can throw a wrench in things, right? So just something to watch. You have to watch that relationship. Okay, so that's oil. Now, one thing I wanted to go over one more thing here. That was oil. Which one was it? I wanted to cover one more thing. Now I can't remember. Let me look. Maybe it was in the chat. I forgot what I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover one more thing, and now I don't remember. That was oil. I went over Coinbase. I went over Robinhood. Was there anything you guys wanted to see? I thought there was another one I wanted to show, and now I can't remember it. That was Coinbase, right? We went over IWM, and I was going to look at like GBTC, which is the grayscale. right? The grayscale ETF. XLP, we can take a look at that. Well, what is XLP? What is that? Geopolitics that could be geopolitics that make oil look like they want to break out. Right. What is I'm not touching oil until Iran. Right. Well, I mean that could be what is causing some of those changes. Remember, the chart on oil is just going to be a reflection of what the market is attempting to price in, right? But if something changes quickly, then doesn't matter what's on the chart. Really, it's going to be the fundamental shaping. Like for example, if you had inside information about something going on in that part of the world, and you use something that the market doesn't know yet, then you have your advantage. And believe me, there are people like that who have that information, and they can position themselves way before a chart even makes anything obvious, right? So a chart doesn't tell us anything about the future. It's really geopolitical events or decisions like that, or law, or how interest rates, whether they're global or domestic interest rates, shape the economic environment. That is what changes the future. Um, if you believe that the situation will not be, then you can speculate on it. Right. I mean, so you have that situation, and you know how Trump likes to surprise people. He sets you up, and then next thing you know, he's knocking on your door, right? So yeah, you have to. That's going to be pure speculation, unless of course you have an inside line to the White House, and you can find out in advance what he's going to do. Okay, so but anyway, here's well, if X what is that XLP? If that's a coin, then Kai, I really can't go over XLP here. Is that the energy sector? Is XLP the energy ETF? Consumed. Oh, it's what is it? The stables, consumer staples. Oh, let's take a look. Oh, it's the S&P component XLP. Let's take a look. Oh wow, look at that. Consumer staples. Is this why grocery prices are going up, Kai? Is this why the price of effing you know prices of certain groceries are like what is going on here? Look at this breakout. Wow, that's an interesting chart. That looks like an altcoin. Wow. Uh, well, I was just checking. I was just checking. I know you know better, but I was just checking. Look at that. That is some chart, Kai. Wow. Do you have anything? Are you betting on? Like, are you in anything that you're benefiting from on this? Or I mean, this is a classic breakout. Look at that. Wow. What is driving this? Rotation from tech into stables. Ah, okay. Yeah, that's clear. That's that's like getting hit over the head with a I don't know what, with a pot. I mean, man, that's a clear breakout. So, situation like that, heavy industrials and stables. Oh, it's rotation in play. Okay. So, I guess that would explain the Dow, right? The Dow pushing highs. Like, what are some examples of the stables? You want to give some stocks? Like, is that like Procter and Gamble and things like that? Uh, Coca-Cola, those types? You know, Johnson and Johnson. Would those be good examples? Yeah, okay. Look at that. So people, this is a very good thing that Kai brings up here. Pay attention to this because, you may not be able to take a trade on something like this at the moment, but this breakout is significant. Let's take a look at a monthly chart. Okay? I mean, look at this. I mean, they've been rising for quite some time and now they're out of control. Right. Okay. So there's a lot of them. Coca-Cola. Right. So all the Dow names, all the classic Dow names. Right. I mean Procter and Gamble. Constellation Brands. I'm willing to bet. People that make cigarettes and all those other things. Staples. Um, to sort out the stock screener by sector. Oh, interesting. So here, so pay attention to what Kai is saying. Kai, you should just do my stream for me. You're way better. You're way better at this than I am. So, no, Hamid, I can't do. I really shouldn't be doing coins. I can't. I really. It's kind of against my agreement. That's why I'm not covering coins. But you could use all the stuff that I said about Bitcoin and the stuff on my other channel that I talk about with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that. You can kind of use that as a guide. Okay, AXS USDT. Yeah, I'm not familiar with AXS, but I am not as funny. All right, well, Kai, we could do a partnership. I'll do the jokes, and you do the economics. Come on, no, there's no one like that. On everyone is so boring on YouTube, right? They're just like, oh, I'm going to talk about economics, and I'm going to pretend to be cool, right? I mean, it's boring. But you could do like the boring stuff, and I can do like the funny stuff. I could do my Michael Saylor impressions the whole time, all right, and make people laugh because that's really all I'm good for. Anyway, no, this is great stuff. Guys, this is an economic piece of information right here. Pay attention to this. This is not just some like altcoin looking chart. This is consumer staples. This is the reason why. I mean, look at this. This is a monthly chart. This dates all the way back. This goes back 25 years, man. Look at this. This is why the Dow, they're making a big, the Dow is at 20 billion thousand. Look at this. This is the reason. So this is a sign, right? So obviously, if we get any type of pullback or consolidation in the coming weeks or months, this is a good place to put your money. This is a good place to invest until this structure breaks. And this structure has obviously been in play for over 20 years. I mean, this is a sign of inflation, right? Because it's not like Coca-Cola is worth more. It's not like they're growing or making more money. It's just our dollars are worth less, right? And people want safety. A lot of these companies, they pay out their shareholders, that kind of thing. It's safety when you're looking at a risk-off environment, you're probably this is like the safe place to go. The funny part is they claim Dow new all-time high is bullish. No, right, right. They're looking for safety, right? So this is another alternative to gold. Palantir. Okay, we could look at Palantir. I don't know if anyone knows the history of that name Palantir. Anyone know where that comes from? I've heard about it, but I wasn't really sure until recently. I found out PLTR Palantir. Oh, look at that! A Palantir is a crystal ball that Sauron uses to get information on the world. Right? It's basically like a spy from Lord of the Rings. You have to be a Lord of the Rings nerd to know what a Palantir is. Okay? You see, Kai knows. Kai knows the Palantirs. Yeah. I mean, what kind of nerd? What kind of nerd came up with that one? I mean, Peter Thiel had to come up with that. They're into that Lord of the Rings stuff. All right. From Romania. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting that they used a straight reference straight out of the movie. I mean, the Palantir was a pretty significant part of that movie. And, they just took it right from there. So anyway, not a nerd of the rings, but I remember that. Yeah, I'm not like a big, like I love those movies, but I'm not like a nerd about it. Like I love the movies, and if I see clips about them and I think it's interesting, but I don't overdo it. You know what I mean? I don't overdo it. I'm more into like the Star Wars stuff, but I don't overdo that either. They make a lot of fan movies nowadays with AI. It's really interesting. So anyway, come, yeah. So, all you guys knew about the Palantir thing. Okay, cool. It's just interesting because the Palantir, that ball, that crystal ball, was actually an evil thing. And that's what they named their company after? An evil thing. I mean, that thing was spying for like the evil, whatever, Sauron or whatever. That thing was like his eyes. Okay. And they name a company after that. I don't know if that's a good thing, man. I don't know about that Peter Thiel. I don't know. So anyway, so let's take a look at the stock real quick. What's happening over here? Let's go to the weekly. So, I mean, serious pullback on this. Look, but this kind of looks similar to that Bitcoin situation, does it not? I mean, look at this. So if you want to bet on evil lords or whatever, I mean, hey, look, it's a good buying opportunity. what's your take on SpaceX and the XAI valuation? You know what? I haven't been following that. I have strong emotions about Palantir. Okay, I don't trade stuff I'm emotional about. Okay, what? I'm just curious. What are you emotional about Palantir? Is it like something like I'm just curious. Like, what is it makes you emotional? Yeah, yeah, I don't know. You know, I actually met him once, very briefly. Like, I put him in a very uncomfortable position. He wasn't too happy, but this was many years ago, before like he was really well known. But he was well known, just not mainstream like he is today. And I asked him to sign a magazine cover, and he wasn't too happy about it. You know, it was this private event that he was doing a speech. He was doing like a presentation for, and right as the event was over, he's like, "Any more questions?" I'm like, "Can you sign this magazine article?" This man signed the, and it was because he was on the cover of the magazine. He was not happy. He signed it, but he wasn't happy. So anyway, that was my experience with him. Um, okay, yeah. Actually, I mean, actually, that's a true story. He wouldn't remember that, but I remember it, and it was in New York City, and he was doing like a presentation. So no, I never sold it. But and the way he signed it was funny too. I don't know if it's like, if we could really prove it's his signature, but you know maybe he thought I was going to try to use his signature for like signing checks or something. I don't know. We're talking like 2008, man. We're talking a long time ago. So he wasn't like the Peter Thiel that you know today. And yeah, the magazine is somewhere. I don't know where it is exactly. I kind of misplaced it, but yeah, but it's a true story. So I'd show it to you guys if I could show it to you. Anyway, so yeah, let me just go back here. I'm just looking at the comments here. Right. So I'm not going to comment on the X and the XAI valuation. We can't trade SpaceX and XAI yet, but I am watching the IPO. If they delay it, it's a strong sign the stock goes. Elon or the people around him are, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that, so I really can't answer that. But maybe Kai can give you more insight. But as far as this Palantir goes, I would treat this like Bitcoin. You have an area here of an old resistance, new support. Okay. Um, and you need stabilization. There's no price stability right now. Now, I know this is a big name, and I understand they do their spy stuff. Do you think Venezuela's stock market is good for investors? Venezuela's stock market, they have a stock market still? I saw something about they're selling homes for like $12,000 over there. You know what? Where there's chaos, there's opportunity. But the problem is you need to know for sure that there's some stability coming in the future. It may, Venezuela might be another Iraqi situation. Many years ago, when I used to work for Forex.com, Iraq was just completely unstable for a very long time. And there was all this talk. I remember we used to get phone calls from people asking about the Iraqi dinar. And, should we invest in this currency because it was worth like nothing. And they're like, oh, it's going to be, we're going to make, and it was all nonsense. It was all nonsense. Right. So just be careful with stuff like that. China has like 80 million empty homes, right? Like just be careful with that. Um, it's those high risk situations, Hamid. If it's like obvious and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a sure thing, then avoid, because a true opportunity for one is one that's often kept secret, right? And so a situation like Venezuela, unless you have an inside scoop, unless you know people on the ground there that can tell you exactly what's going on, I wouldn't trust anything. Like just like with that Iraq stuff, you can't trust the rumors that are going around because there's usually some kind of scammer behind it or whatever, and they're scamming people, right? Typically, it's very common. So unless you have a good inside line, I would not trust public information on stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, so if I were you, I would try to find insiders, right? Try to find people who have inside information, and then you'll be much better off. Like, for example, the Ukraine situation. At some point, they're going to have to find, a solution over there, right? And they're going to have to rebuild. Someone's going to make money in that besides Jared Kushner. Someone's going to make money, right? So, I mean, if you know insiders over there, like on the Ukraine on the ground, there may be opportunities over there, right? It go up like 100%. Well, I mean, again, it's possible, but really you have to know like what's going on, in my opinion, and you really have to have solid information. Um, right, because again, everyone's gonna flee from those areas, right? But at some point, that value is gonna come back, but there's gonna be a lot of scams. You can now pick stocks that could benefit from the Ukraine peace or suffer from it. Right. So, I mean, you could look at the stocks. Um, okay. Oh, no problem, Alex. Thanks for stopping by. And I'm going to wrap this up anyway. Just keep talking because you guys got me talking about all this other conspiracy theory stuff. But, again, I would not jump into anything that looks like Captain Obvious, right? Like, again, like if you know someone in the Ukraine, someone that you can trust, because, right off the bat, I know some Ukrainian guys, but you can't exactly trust them. It's just the way it is. They invented they invented they invented corruption. So like I know people I can ask, but I don't know if I could trust the answers I'm going to get. You know what I mean? So if you know like that, if you have some sort of control in a situation like that, so same with Venezuela. If you have some inside scoop, then your chances are better than going off of some article you read or some chat room somewhere where you don't know and you're just going off of rumors. That's all I'm going to say about that. But the idea makes sense. I think Venezuela at some point they're going to have to find stability. I mean, they have oil. There's potential there. It's just you have to get over the instability part. Just like when a stock, right? We're looking at Palantir over here. There's still a lack of stability right now, right? So you need to see stability. You need to see some sort of consolidation, something. And if you want to take small bites, okay, but this thing can keep going right now. The momentum, is bearish, right? So you don't want to go nuts with this thing just because it's sitting at a low. It's okay to take bites and keep your risk relatively under control, like I'm doing with Coinbase. If Coinbase wants to go to 100, go ahead. I don't care. I can buy more. You know what I mean? I'm not in a position that's going to cause like a margin call for me or anything like that. I can take it. It's easy. It's very small, right? And that's the whole idea. I don't want to be big in something that can really hammer you. So this is like one of those type of situations. So again, when you're talking about something like Venezuela or something like Ukraine, I think there are going to be opportunities. What about Cuba? We haven't even taken over Cuba yet, right? That's next on the list. I'm sure. I mean, just think about the property value in that country, right? Just think about that property value, how much that property is worth. All right. I'm sure we're not the only ones thinking that way. So when we send the Delta Force knocking on that guy's door, and he's in New York taking his little vacation, playing dominoes with Maduro in New York, Cuba. Just think about that. But of course, if an opportunity like that opens up, we're not going to be the first ones in on that one, right? Jared Kushner is going to be the first one in on that one, right? And those guys, people with those type of connections, they're going to be the first ones in. Unless, of course, you know people on the ground and you have inside information coming out of the ground in Cuba, then you know what's going on and you could make more informed decisions. But if you don't have that, you cannot go by, something you read on a Telegram channel, right? You cannot go by that because most of the time that nonsense is scam. It's a scam and it's made to steer you the wrong way and fleece you. That most of the time, that's what it is. Okay. So you really need to know someone on the inside for that, whether it's someone, at the White House or someone who's in that area that's located there that you can trust. Okay. So anyway, all right. So you guys follow me on that? All right. Yeah. Good night, Alex. Thank you again for stopping by. So guys, I'm going to leave you with this because I got to wrap this up too, man, because I've been talking too long. I wanted to cut this earlier. This is the Bitcoin ETF, right? GBTC. You can use this as your guide, whether you're looking at things like Coinbase or you're looking at other like layer one coins. And a lot of those altcoins, they're not going to come back until we see cheap money. Now, like I pointed out before, the bond market is on its way. Okay, the bond market is showing a good start, but it's still a long way from anything significant, right? And we need to see that bond market needs to be showing us low yields for some time before we start to feel the effects of that cheap money. And it is that cheap money that's going to cultivate the next altcoin season if there's going to be one, right? I believe, unless some other catalysts come along that I'm just completely not aware of. I mean, Kai is probably in a better position to comment about that than I am, but that's the key to the altcoins. Anything highly speculative, right? You need cheap money. So if we don't have cheap money, I don't know where it's going to come from, right? I just don't know where it's going to come from. So, but the layer ones, right, or the infrastructure coins or the main ones, right, follow this, because what we want to see here is stability. I talk a lot about this on my other channel. If you're not on there, you should be on there, because all those videos, I know I joke around and I yell a lot and all that other stuff, but the charts are very insightful. And, you know, there is some good points to take away from those charts, right? Especially with some of those swing trades that, you know, I'm coming up with or whatever, like that I'm sharing on that channel. There's some value there. But the point is this: we need stability in this area. And going back here, okay, going back here, there's a consolidation. And this is what I talk a lot about on the other channel. We are in the same location. That's a good start. Okay, it's a good start, but we still lack stability. This is the weekly time frame. So keep in mind, if this is wave 2, which now we remember that all that stuff I talked about at 88K, the 88K overlap, you guys remember, because I talked about it with you guys most of the time. That was way up here, right? Remember when we blew through that 88K? How USA should pay $36 trillion loan. There's a lot of ways. You can revalue gold, you know, Bitcoin, cheap money, right? They could revalue gold though. Watch out for that, right? Because gold on the government balance sheet is like $42 or something stupid like that. Okay. But we know the real price of gold is 5,000. So they can revalue some of that gold. That's one thing. They're also talking about the Bitcoin reserves, right? Buying all this Bitcoin. The government's going to buy 1 million Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And if Bitcoin appreciates, they're going to use that. Like, so they have some ways, but cheap money is also, that's the typical way, right? The governments, they like to do that. They like to pay back their debt with worthless paper. Okay. Now, but I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. They don't seem to be interested in doing that. You know, my point is this: as far as investing goes, right? Again, it's not like Bitcoin is a blue chip asset. It's still a high risk asset. And when risk comes off, we just looked at consumer staples, thanks to Kai's suggestion there. Consumer staples is going to the roof, right? It's going through the roof. That's a move to safety. Okay, that means risk off. That means Bitcoin and everything else suffers. When that chart turns, when the consumer staples turn, and people get that risk appetite again, which usually comes along with cheap money, you should see stability here developed. We don't have that yet. So my point is this too: if this is wave 2, if this is the broad wave 2, which you can see that on this chart, right? If this entire structure is wave 1, guys, remember I used to talk about this all the time. If this is wave 1, this entire thing is wave 1. This is wave 2. Giant magnitude wave 2. We could see 50K, right? Or lower. That's also a possibility. So like on my other channel, you hear a lot of bullish talk. Yeah, there's that bullish possibility, retest of 80K, right? Look, there's a nice gap up there in that area too. Look at that, right? So there's potential to retest, but don't overlook the bigger picture. If we are in a wave 2, a broad wave 2, right? Our range may look like this, right? For the foreseeable future, our range may be in there, meaning range low may be 50K, range high may be 90K, and we may stay in that range for a long time, just like gold. They can't sell a lot of gold. If they sell 10% of treasury gold, well, right, but you know, it all depends, right? And does the U.S. even have gold? We don't even know if they have gold in Fort Knox, right? They may have sold it. We don't even know what our gold reserves are because no one wants to tell us, right? They tried to look into the gold reserves a while back, and then they just kind of forgot about that idea. We don't know what's in Fort Knox, right? We don't know what the government gold position is, do we? I don't know. Maybe I missed that one. But my point is this: Bitcoin could go into a range similar to gold, right? Gold would go into these multi-year consolidations, right, before it broke out. And if this is a wave two, which I suspect it is, not only could we potentially go lower in the near term, but we can consolidate for quite some time. So keep that in mind. If we're consolidating, investing during a consolidation is not a bad thing. If you're buying into the range low, 50K or something like that, and it runs back up to 80K, and that's the short-term high, the range high, you take some profit up there, right? But don't make the mistake of thinking that it's going to go straight to like 125, because at 80K, 90K, you better believe all your friends like Michael Saylor are going to come out, things going to 200K, I told you. Don't get sucked into that. Understand the big picture. Understand the potential levels, 50K, 80K, 90K, and put that into perspective with the fundamental shifts that are taking place, right? Look at the bond market. That's a source of fundamental shift. Look at the geopolitical landscape, because that's a source of fundamental shift. And look at legislation, because that is a source of fundamental shift. We're waiting for this Clarity Act, which never seems to come out. Okay, that's going to be a shift. So that may cause some near-term bullishness or whatever, but we need a combination. We need low rates. We need support like things from like the Clarity Act. We maybe other laws that we don't even know about yet. We need things like that to really bolster this thing and change the perception of the future, right? I mean, just think about 35 to 45K is low range. Yeah, we could do that. What's the low here? 39K is this is the low over here, Hamid, right? 39K, that's this low over here, right? It's hard to believe that we can go that low, but we can do it. So don't be surprised, right? Now, I'm not sitting here, I don't like to get extremely bullish or extremely bearish, but in these situations, risk is much lower than it was up here, okay? Remember how careful I was telling people to be? You guys remember, because you guys came to all my streams, right? Now look where we are. So if you're looking to take your bites, now is the time, but keep in mind, it may take we don't even have stability yet. So stability first, and then we have to see how things play out. We still have a cryptocurrency friendly administration. They're going to pull things out of there, to try to bolster the market, right? We may see legislation beyond the Clarity Act. We don't even know what's on their agenda, right? But they're going to try, because all they do is come out and say bullish things. So we have to keep that in mind. And eventually, we have to see how the midterm elections go, who stays in power. Because if the Democrats take over, then, that might not be exactly good for things like Bitcoin, right? But we have to see. So that's what I say. Don't get stuck in opinions. Watch your levels. Understand where your risk is relative to those levels, and keep an eye on the ever-changing fundamental landscape, and then see how it aligns. Okay? Right now, risk is generally lower than it was at 126K. So now is a time to accumulate, but now is not a time to be aggressive. Not a time to be aggressive, in my opinion. Okay? The cost of economic miners, prices for mining, right? That's, Hamid, those are good things to keep an eye on, right? Because the mining is a big factor, right? So things like that. But the geopolitical landscape and the legislation, right? Things like that are going to shape, and the charts should align. So you should see the shifts. The charts may stabilize first, because often people know stuff in advance and they start positioning, right? Insiders. And that's why you see the stabilization develop in the charts. And then laws start to change, right? But you have to keep an eye on all these moving parts, and you have to be positioned. So it begins with risk, and generally the risk is lower, right? So now is the time, if you have a favorite altcoin or a project or whatever, now is a time when you're probably going to get a good price, okay? Not when these things are at all-time highs. But again, a key factor is cheap money. So we're starting to move the right way in that regard. But remember, we're going to have Warsh taking over soon, and we don't know how hawkish or bear or dovish he's going to be. He looks like a hawk, but he may be a complete phony. and he may come out and start cutting rates and doing things that people are not expecting. Just like a few months ago, Powell and all them, they misled us. Powell was saying, "Oh, we're going to cut rates and we're going to see how things go," and he was his language was leaning toward cheap money. And then he changed his mind. So he set us up, right? And then the perception went from we're going to have cheap money to now I don't know if we're going to have cheap money. Now we're not going to get those rate cuts that we wanted, right, at those certain times. So you have to watch for shifts like that. And Warsh is right now in uncertainty. We don't know what his deal is going to be. Well, once he starts talking, we'll have a better idea. And the market's going to change. Okay? All right, you guys. So I'm going to leave you with that. Just these are things to think about. Watch for stability. We don't have it yet. All right. So you guys understand the deal here. If you have questions, you guys know where to find me. Go to the Telegram channel. You could leave comments in the other videos or whatever. You could send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, guys. So thank you for watching. I hope I have more people. Oh, man. I got like no one watching. Come on. Oh, man. Why do I do this? All right, I get carried away because I like entertaining you guys. Okay, Hamid and Kai and Alex from Romania, and that's it. All right, guys. So I'm gonna leave you with that, and so thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure for you lazy people on Twitter, make sure you scan that QR code because that'll take you into the Telegram room where I have all the detailed trade ideas and all other stuff. If you're interested in the cryptocurrency aspect. Okay, we have AVNT, I can't remember the symbol now. I can't say it. AVTR or AVN, I can't think of it right now. That one, there's Ethereum, right? There's a few things going on there. So make sure you check that out. All right, guys. So again, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. AVTR, right? Is it? I don't remember the symbol. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, wherever you are, and thank you very much for watching.